Okay, so next this is question 17 on page 132. It's very similar to question 16, which you're going to do by yourself. Okay, so g of x is 3x plus 4, h of x is ax minus 2, find a. We're told hgx equalsghx. Okay, so all we do is break this down. I'm going to find this one first. What is hg of x? It's the same as hg of x, obviously, which is the same as h 3x plus 4. I've replaced gx with 3x plus 4. If I'm subbing 3x plus 4 into h is a times x minus 2. So h of 3x plus 4 is going to be a times 3x plus 4 minus 2, which is equal to 3ax plus 4a minus 2. And that's my hg of x. So that's that one done. We're now going to do the second part here, this one, g of h of x, down here. So first of all, we will write out our functions, which are that g of x equals 3x plus 4, h of x equals ax minus 2. So then what we're trying to find here, gh of x is equal to, well, first again, we do our g of h of x, we get h of x and put it in the bracket. H of x is ax minus 2. So that means this is going to become g ax minus 2. Next then, we end up with 3 times ax minus 2 plus 4, because I subbed in the ax minus 2 for x in g. See, it replaced that. And we then end up with, sorry, I subbed in for that. We then end up with multiplying this out, 3ax minus 6 plus 4, so 3ax minus 2. So now we have that gh of x is this, and hg of x is this, and we know hg of x is equal to ghx, so we're going to equal a and b. Okay, so from that we ended up with replacing h of g of x with a here and replacing g of h of x with b here. We now have these two equal. We want to find a. The problem is we have x's we don't know the value of, but we know, or we can assume, that this statement here is true for every x value. So what would be the easiest x value to let these equal to work it out? Well, we could pick any. We could pick 100, we could pick 1000, we could pick 2, we could pick minus 2. But usually the easiest is just going to be 0. So I'm going to let x equal 0. And you could pick any value because you know this is true for all x values. Let x equal 0. So if we subbed in x equals 0 here, we'd end up with 0 minus 4a minus 2 equals 0 minus 2. Then we'd end up with those cancelling. So we'd end up with a minus 4a equals 0. So a is equal to 0. And you wouldn't actually even need to sub in here. I just noticed you could also have just done like this. 3ax minus 3ax and then minus 2 cancel. So you'd end up with minus 4a 0, a 0. But like you can do either way. And you know, knowing that you can sub in any x value is actually handy. Especially like even for doing this, it would be very easy to do it out. You could, if you use the same x value here in gh of x as you did in hg of x, it would just make the calculations a bit easier. So anyway, that was the answer to that. A is equal to 0. So as I said, that should help you with page 132, question 16. Okay, next then is decomposing a function. So basically, we've been given the combined function. We need to write it in terms of two or four separate functions. You can be quite creative with this. There's quite a few different answers you could put in. But all I'm going to do here for two separate functions, I'm going to make it as easy as possible. I'm going to first focus on the big one. So the big one here is letting t, again, t and x are basically the same thing. So I'm going to change this into x. So my first function here for the two functions is going to be f of x equals 5x. And this would mean that if we subbed in 8t minus 3 to the power of 4 into that, we'd end up with 5 times 8t minus 3 to the power of 4, which is what we have here. Okay, so that is of x is going to be 5x to the power of 4. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, like as I said, there's a few options here. We could do this. I'm just picking this randomly. You could do another one. But look, if we subbed in 8t minus 3 into this function here, we'd get 8t minus 3 to the 4, which is exactly what this is here. Okay, so that's my first example of a function. So now that we've done that, how could we break this down further? Well, we could change this into, we could split this middle part here and make this middle part so g of x, we'll say. Okay, we'll make this middle part 8t minus 3 is g of x. So g of x here would be, how would we get 8t minus 3 using g of x? We could change it to 8x minus 3. Okay, so if we then backtracked and went like this, we combine these two together, f of g of x. If we wanted to find f of g of t, then that would be f of g of t. What is g of t? Well, it would be this, except with t replacing x, so f of 8t minus 3. Now, what would f of 8t minus 3 be? It would be 5 times 8t minus 3 to the power of 4, which is exactly what we started with up here. So basically, I found for my two functions, I said this is the same. So this function here, this is my answer to the question. This function, or just func we'll say, decomposes into f of g of t, where g of t, or g of x, whatever you want to say, equals 8t minus 3, and ft equals, or fx, it doesn't matter, equals 5t to the power of 4. Okay, so basically it's like going backwards from what you had originally. There's loads of different answers you could do for this, as long as when you sub in t at the end here, in whatever functions you've made up, you get the particular formula you started off with in the question. Okay, I'm going to do the same for 4 separate functions now. Same idea. So how can we split this into 4 separate functions? Well, actually I just realized there's a mistake. This should be 3 separate functions. There's a typo in the question, the one I took down. So we're just going to go change that back up here. It should be 3 instead of 4. Okay, so don't worry about it too much. Okay, so we're going to split this into 3 separate functions. So first function is going to be the big one. It's actually going to be the same two as the ones above we saw. So the big one here is fx to the 4. Okay, that's my first function. Next function then. Okay, so I've done that part. I've made this x, and I've done the same as that. So I'm going to go inside this bracket and think, what could I do first step to change this here? I'm going to change g of x. I'm going to change 8t next to x. So I'm going to get g of x is x minus 3. And then the last function, h, is going to be 8x. Okay, so I'll show through the logic why I did this. So basically, what you're doing is you're breaking down each bigger part into a different function. So first function I broke down was this. I replaced this with x here. Next function, this one inside this bracket, I replaced x here, 8t here, with x again. So x again for 8t. And the last one then, I change h of x to 8x. So in this function, I change t to x here. Okay, so Let's just double check that this is correct. I know it is correct. So if I'm saying that this function is the same as f of g of h of t. Okay, so in that order. So my first function is going to be f of g of h of t. What is h of t? Well, if h of x is 8x, then we would get 8t here. If f of g of 8t, then what is g of 8t? Well, we'd replace x with 8t. We'd end up with 8t minus 3. And then last of all, then what is f of 8t minus 3? We would end up with 5 times 8t minus 3, replacing x in this with 8t minus 3 to the power of 4. And this is our original function, so we've done that correctly. We've created f, g, and x so that we've split up this big function into 3 separate functions. So you now should be able to attempt the other homework questions, and that will be all for today.